Seven Brothers Mountain. Leaving of the mountain. The great cavern of the Seven Brothers clan was colder than usual that night, its fire pits giving more smoke than heat. Shadows moved across the stalactites overhead, like old spirits turning in their sleep. Yyth felt those shadows heavy on his shoulders as he stood before the stone dais. At his side, Fang loomed, broad of chest, jaw tight, eyes lit with stubborn fire. Before them sat Woden, the first brother and chosen leader of the clan. His beard was white as cave frost, braided thick, his shoulders still massive despite the winters pressing upon him. In his hand rested a staff capped with a shard of blood crystal, a fragment mined from the mountain's heart itself. No steel adorned him, no steel adorned any of them. The Seven Brothers clan had sworn generations ago never to use the metal of outsiders. Their weapons, their tools, their very traditions were hewn from crystal drawn from the mountain. It was their lifeblood, and their curse. Around Woden sat the elders, old warriors, and keepers of law. The cavern was silent, but for the drip of water and the distant groan of the mountain. Woden's voice rumbled like a landslide. You have asked for this audience, Yyth and Fang. You say you wish to leave the mountain. Speak, and know that every word will weigh upon the stone. Yyth shifted, heart hammering. His mouth was dry, but he forced his voice to carry. Father of the clan, we ask leave to go down from these heights. The world beyond changes. Trade runners whisper of the Crimson Pentacle's corrupted dominion. Of Steel City's swelling strength, of Mage Town's plots. We cannot stay blind while the earth itself shifts beneath our feet. We would see for ourselves. We would know. Murmurs passed through the elders like a stirring wind. Fang stepped forward, chin high, voice steady. We ask not to abandon our people, but to serve them. If we walk the roads, we can bring word of danger, for supplies to unburden the lowland folk. Better two of us risk the world's teeth than the whole brotherhood sit in ignorance. Woden's eyes narrowed, his hand tightening on the crystal staff. Do you recall the oath? He asked, voice low. When the founders treated in peace with the pentacle, they swore their line would never leave. That oath binds us even now. The mountain is our cradle, our shield. To leave it is to break faith. Yes, Yyth said quickly, we remember the oath. But the oath was made by the founders, that they might hold fast when enemies pressed from all sides. We are not founders. We are sons. The blood binds us, but the stone does not chain us. If we go as envoys, not exiles. An elder leaned forward, shaking his head. You speak bold. But boldness feeds no bellies. Outside there is iron, sorcery, treachery. Crystal has no place there. You will be broken before you take your third step. Fang's teeth flashed in a grim smile. Crystal is harder than steel, when forged by our fire. Let them see what the mountain shapes. Let them fear it. For a long moment, the cavern was still. Yyth felt every muscle trembling, though he stood as tall as he could manage. Woden stared at his clan-born, his gaze lingering on Yyth, then Fang, measuring, weighing. At last, he struck the staff against the dais. The sound cracked like a fault in the stone. You have your leave, Woden said at last, his voice carved in iron certainty. Go then. Go as sons of the Seven Brothers. Carry the mountain with you, speak its truth. And if you fall, fall, knowing you are of us. Relief surged through Yyth so strong it made him lightheaded. Fang let out a breath that was almost a laugh, though his face stayed hard. The decision was made. Permission granted. But Woden's next words struck like a hammer. You will be mourned the day you leave. For the oath remains. The founders swore never to set foot beyond these slopes. By going, you walk outside their promise. The mountain cannot call you back until your journey is ended, or until death finds you. Do you understand? Yyth bowed his head. We understand. The farewell feast. Word spread swiftly through the caverns, rolling through tunnels and echoing in firelit halls. By nightfall, every warrior, every mother, every child of the Seven Brothers knew that Yyth and Fang were leaving. The mountain buzzed with it, pride and sorrow, anger and awe. The feast was laid in the great, long house. Stone tables overflowed with root stew, slabs of roasted goat, and fermented berry drink sharp as knives. The brothers of the clan sang songs that shook dust from the ceiling. Jix ate little. Every bite felt like air. He would not taste this food again for many moons, perhaps never again. One by one, clanmates came to him and Fang. Broad-shouldered hunters clasped their arms. Mothers pressed crystal into their palms. Children clung to their legs, eyes wide. An old friend, Torv, slipped Jix a crystal shard, polished to a smooth point. "For luck," he muttered, "and to remind you where your heart lies." Fang chuckled, clapping Torv on the shoulder. "You think my cousin needs luck more than I do?" Torv smirked faintly. "He listens. You don't." Laughter broke the heaviness for a moment. But beneath it ran grief, steady as the undercurrent of a river. Rites. After the feast, torches were dimmed. The clan gathered in a circle, Jix and Fang stripped of weapons, bare save for their crystal pendants, the mark of their bloodline. Woden himself spoke the rites. "Children of the mountain, hear me. These two sons go down into the wide world. They step beyond the oath of the founders. They will walk among strangers, eat strange food, hear strange tongues, but still they are ours. Still the blood binds." The clan thundered back in unison. "Still the blood binds." Woden raised the crystal staff, touched it first to Fang's brow, then Jix's. The cool stone burned like fire against their skin. "Go as brothers, go as warriors, go as watchers for the clan. May the mountain remember your names, and may it grant you rest when the time comes." The chant rose again, echoing in every throat. The mountain remembers. The mountain yet stands. Jix's chest swelled until it hurt. He knew in that moment that whatever roads they walked, whatever battles they faced, the mountain would always thunder inside him. Morning. Preparation filled the last days. Packs were sewn from hide, filled with dried meat and skins of water. Cloaks were lined with fur. Fang's twin crystal axes gleamed like frozen fire, edges sharp as hunger. Jix's bow was strung with gut sinew, his arrows tipped with shards of mountain crystal that glittered like stars in the dark. His emerald-like blade on his back. No steel touched their hands. They carried the mountain with them in every blade, every tool. On the final morning, the clan gathered at the mouth of the cavern. Wind howled over the cliffs, carrying the scent of pine and snow. Beyond stretched the world, endless, terrible, unknown. Woden stood at the front, cloak whipping around his massive frame. His voice carried above the gale. "You go with the mountain in your blood. Do not squander it, do not shame it. Remember who you are, remember who waits here." Fang turned, raising one axe high. "We go as sons, we return as brothers," Jix added, voice rough with the weight in his chest. "And we carry the mountain wherever we walk." The clan howled then, a long rolling cry that shook stone and sky alike. Jix felt it thrum in his bones, his heart, his very soul. He lifted his own voice in answer, and Fang beside him, until the sound split the heavens. When at last the echoes faded, silence fell. The cousins looked at one another, nodded once, and stepped forward. Out of the cavern, down the slope, into the wide waiting world. Behind them, the mountain held its silence. Ahead, everything waited to be learned. And so began the leaving of the Seven Brothers clan. Descent. The ropes were already frosted stiff when Jix threw the coil over the cliff's lip and laughed once, sharp and small as an icicle breaking. "Last chance to fake a twisted ankle," he called. Fang tightened his harness without huffing the joke. "I don't fake things. You know that. You prefer to break them," Jix said, checking the knot. Behind them the village slept under a sheet of ice, low smoke from stone chimneys, no drums, no cries. Only the brittle hush of hope stretched thinner than good luck. Fang glanced back once, jaw working. "They'll hold. Long enough. If we don't get back fast, they'll be holding bones," Jix answered. As he drove his spike into blue frost, and dropped without a prayer, Fang followed. The cliff was glass and cruelty, and the breath between them turned white and snapped. Every piton Yyth hammered in bit sparks from the stone like old stars. Halfway down, Fang muttered, "Why us?" "Because we don't argue during council meetings," came the reply. "You punched the council. That's why they sent us." They dropped the last 10 feet in unison and hit snow like men who had learned how to fail and keep moving. Yyth scanned the horizon where the dark forest waited like a clenched jaw. 2 weeks to Greenwall, he said. Less if we don't sleep. Less if we die too. Fang let the look between them mean what it needed to. 2 men with frostbitten faces and a village on their backs, not heroes and not saints, just the sort who did what had to be done. "Let's go make friends," Fang said. He grinned, and the grin didn't quite reach the lines at his eyes. Long way down. The first 100 feet was stone and scree, the sort of descent a man with elk-bone knees could make look like carting burdens downhill. Fang kept lowering himself hand over hand. Yyth worked below him, driving pitons, with the casual fury of someone who believed metal could be coaxed into courage. "I hate mountains," Fang said. "You live on one?" Yyth answered without looking up. Fang adjusted the wrapped cloth at his hip, fingers worrying a bundle that should have remained strapped to Yyth's back. It was too long for his shoulder, too slippery to carry bare. "You should have carried your own relic," he complained. "And hammer pitons with my teeth." Yyth replied, "You've chewed worse," Fang said, half joking. The ledge that came next was narrow and angled wrong. Fang's boot missed. Once, then again. The rope snapped taut. He slammed into the cliff face. The cloth bundle struck first. The stitching gave. For a heartbeat, a green blur spun away from his hip and vanished into white mist and empty sky. "No." Fang's voice was a raw edge. "Yyth." Yyth stared down at the place the blade vanished. His knuckles whitened around the anchor. Fang hauled himself up, breath heavy in his throat. "It was my mistake," he tried. "I know," Yyth said. "We'll mourn later. You'll get it back." Fang sounded like a man bargaining with fate and losing every round. "You won't. And you shouldn't say things you can't do." Yyth's tone was flat and final. They climbed the rest, in a silence that tasted of iron. Frostshire came into view like a carved promise. Stone buildings piled like teeth, amber lights behind thick glass, no walls, no guards, just the patient craftsmanship of people who made safety of hammer and hearth. The smells hit like a blow: coal, resin, cured leather, and something sweet baking beneath it all. "Don't limp in," Yyth warned softly as they passed beneath a low arch. "Dwarves notice weakness. Dwarves notice everything," Fang said. He once sneezed and 3 of them offered him pepper for different reasons. A bearded figure in blacksmith leathers wiped soot from his palms and stepped forward. Master Dernick looked them over, his eyes lingering on Yyth's empty scabbard. He asked the way a man asks a question he already knows the answer to. "You lost her?" Yyth said nothing. Dernick insisted, "Eat first, grieve after, then we'll talk brass and barter." The longhouse warmth hit the men like kindness. Fang ate until his hands shook. Yyth only chewed at his food. When business arrived, it wore the blunt face of need. Frostshire needed red elm and winter kelm root, whole boughs and dark swamp-grown root, for sick children. Dernick's price was precise: a silver-forged broadhead axe, 3 days' rations, boots with real lining, and a warning not to try naming anything with too many eyes and not enough teeth. Yyth's answer was a single, flat, done. The world had little room for second thoughts when children's lungs were failing. They left before midday with packs heavier, and a map that went east, and a silence between them heavy enough to carry regret. Trade for the road. By the time the square unclenched, mules and crates and curses turned the plaza into a small tempest. Fang argued with a mule about space. The mule blinked with the insolent, patient dignity of pack animals. A merchant named Bollis Thatch slowed his ox cart beside them, linens wrapped in oilcloth. He smelled of trade and coin, and made small, useful talk. "Careful ahead," Bolus said. "Leather men on the eastern fork. Organized. Not enough iron to stop a spear, but organized." "You came through?" Fang asked. Bolus had turned. Bedding wasn't worth a bruised rib. He didn't pry when Jix's empty scabbard showed itself. He only offered a place to find him in Greenwall's harbour market. "Find the right man," Bolus advised, with the calm of someone who sold sleep to forgetters. Jix watched the road like a thing that might grow teeth. Fang looked at the horizon, and for a moment, allowed himself a laugh that was part bravado and part exhaustion. They were travelling toward Red Elm, Kelmroot, and a city that promised more problems than coin. Before the road, they made a lean camp with a fire that sizzled fat into steam. Fang skinned and tied the deer into jerky and packs while Jix stripped sinew and set the heart into coals, buried in cinders like an offering. They spoke of plans like two men who had learned to make strategy its own prayer. 60,000 people, Fang said, repeating a number a map mason in Frostshire had told him. "That's what the Frostshire map mason told me. Greenwall's the size of a valley." "Then we don't find the city," Jix said. "We find the right person in it." They slept with a watch to trade. But at moonrise, the night came like mist, and something without steps slid across the camp and pressed its long, many-jointed fingers on Jix's chest. Blood didn't spill, it was taken, like breath. At dawn, Jix lay curled as though carved, lips blue, and two tiny punctures at his collar. Fang crushed dried sage and saltroot, and shoved the mix under Jix's tongue. He held a knife like a prayer. "We need the city," Fang told the empty sky. "We need Thor." Dawn reddened. When Fang twisted Jix onto his back and peeled away the torn furs, panic stripped the neat stoicism that was his pride. The blood wasn't just red, it was thick, oily, edged with shadow, as though something darker than marrow had leaked into it. The fire had already gone from Jix's eyes, his breath rasped like stone dragged against stone. His lips moved, dry and brittle. "They came at twilight," Jix mouthed, his voice thin as blown glass. "Fragile enough that the mountain wind could have carried it away. One touched my shadow before I even saw it." Fang pressed a hand against the wound as though he could plug the darkness with raw strength. He shook his head once, violently, refusing the words. "You're not turning," he said, trying to build certainty out of the bleakness. "You're strong. You're one of the 7. That curse will break itself on your bones." But Jix only smiled, a wet little smile with blood on the edges of his teeth, and slid something from the sash at his side. It was a carved stake of yew, short, honed with care, every ridge smoothed by hours of a patient hand. He pressed it into Fang's palm with a strength that belied his failing body. "Do it before nightfall," he said. The impossible request dropped between them like a stone into deep water. Fang wanted to fling the stake into the trees, wanted to shout until the peaks themselves shuddered. His hand shook with fury, the wood burning against his skin. "Don't you hand me that," he said, his voice ragged. "Don't you dare hand me that. It has to be you." Jix's eyes searched his cousin's, steady even in pain. "I don't want anyone else's face to be the last thing I see." Fang felt the words as a spear to the gut. He had faced wolves, storms, the bitter hunger of winter lean, but never this. He wanted to deny it with the full violence of his spirit, yet the carved stake sat heavy in his grip, undeniable, as though the ancestors themselves had planted it there. They spoke in fragments, the language of family who had never needed many words. Memories spilled between them, not as stories but as living things. The bear cub they had once chased through snowdrifts until it vanished into the pines. The small comfort of goat milk stolen as boys and shared in guilty laughter. The cruel tender way Jix had always mocked Fang's heavy hands, until those same hands had saved his life in a rockslide. Each memory surfaced and cracked, as though the wound itself had opened a gate to their whole shared life. Then Jix confessed the thing that made the stake necessary. "The hunger's already there," he whispered. His pupils swam wide, swallowing color. A voice. like claws raking the inside of my skull. It wants me to turn, to hunt, to start with you. His face twisted, not with pain, but with horror at his own words. If I go full dark, Fang, I'll try to kill you. Fang dropped to his knees beside him. He gripped the yew until his knuckles went white, and still he refused. You do not get to go out like this, he said, his voice low and shaking. We make it to the city. We find a cure. We fight it, together. Jix's eyes brimmed, the first tears Fang had ever seen him shed since boyhood. Together, he echoed, half wonder, half despair. The mountain wind keened through the crystal ridges above them, the sound sharp and holy. Fang thought of Woden's teaching, of the first oath the founders had bound to their blood. The seven shall not leave the mountain, lest the world devour them. He thought of the second oath, the one hammered into their hearts from birth. Steel is forbidden, the blood of the earth is enough. That was why their weapons were crystal, mined from the veins of the mountain, forged in smoke and ritual, never cold iron. Yew stakes were for beasts, not men, and yet here he was, stake in hand, with no law but love to guide him. Memory. As Fang pressed cloth to Jix's wound, his thoughts kept circling back to the Seven Brothers clan. Woden, their leader, was the last of the originals, his beard long as a glacier's shadow, his arms still corded with strength. Woden had always said the mountain was their mother and their prison. Leave her, and you will die, he would thunder, for the oath binds us, and what lives below will eat what dares to flee. Yet, here were Fang and Jix, already broken of that oath in heart if not in step. To seek Greenwall meant defiance. To carry Jix down from the peaks was treachery, in Woden's eyes. But what was a brother's oath compared to a cousin's life? The stake trembled in Fang's grip, as though it knew the clan law. He thought of the crystal forges, glowing in caverns where the mountain's breath ran molten. He thought of how Jix's first weapon, a long-hafted glaive of quartz-veined crystal, had shattered on a troll's skull, leaving him weaponless until Fang had thrown him a spare. They had laughed about it later, called it bad luck. But that broken blade was still hidden in Jix's pack. The mountain never gave up its weapons easily. Now, even faith might not save him. The bargain. Jix's hand clawed weakly for Fang's wrist. Promise me, he croaked. If I turn. No. Fang's voice was thunder. There will be no turning. Promise me. Jix's breath hitched, but his grip was iron despite his failing strength. The clan has laws for this, you know them. Better my death by your hand than by theirs. Fang bowed his head, shaking. You do not get to demand this of me. I do, Jix whispered. Because you're the only one who'll weep when it's done. Fang felt something split inside him, clean as crystal breaking. He leaned his forehead to his cousin's, their breath mingling. Then we make a bargain, he said hoarsely. Not the clan's. Bargain. Ours. You fight. I carry. If you lose, I will. I will do what must be done. But until then, I do not abandon you. Jix wept openly now, shoulders shaking. You always were the stubborn one. And you always the fool. Fang answered, his throat raw. So maybe we deserve each other. It was not a law, not a ritual. But it was stronger than either, a bond that belonged to them alone. Fang repacked the wound in cloth, layering moss and salt to slow the spread of shadow. He hoisted Jix over his shoulders in the old carry the clan used for fallen hunters, one arm across the back, one under the knees. Jix groaned but did not resist. Fang rose, legs braced like stone pillars, and began the slow trudge down the deer path that wound toward the lowlands. Behind them, the mountain glared with the hard beauty of crystal spires catching the last light. Before them, faint on the wind, came the first hint of smoke from Greenwall. A city of strangers, a place no son of the seven should ever tread. Fang walked anyway, his cousin's weight a vow across his shoulders, the yew stake burning in his grip. Greenwall rose on the horizon, spires like needles catching a sun that had already learned to be hard. Fang drifted into the high quarter near dusk, and found the church of Thor like an anvil sunk into the earth. The granite Mjolnir in its yard was cracked at the haft, but still a monument to stubbornness. "You walked here from Frostshire?" asked the priest with hands like ladles, and eyes that had seen too many winters. Fang answered with clipped fragments, children needing resin, a loss at descent, and, then the worst thing, Jix, dying because of creatures that took blood like breath. The priest listened without sermon. He offered what he could, food, tinctures, maybe a healer, and then asked the question that rested heavy on Fang's shoulders. "Where will you go now?" "To answer for it," Fang said. When Fang told the priest the truth, that he had staked Jix while still breathing, there was a long silence. The priest did not move to judge. He only put a heavy hand on Fang's shoulder and said, "Some burdens you carry, others you leave at the altar." It wasn't absolution, but it was not nothing. Fang left the yard with the hammer behind him, and a weight that might yet be heavier if not shared. Confession. The watch barracks smelled of boiled leather, oil, and ledger dust. 2 guards crossed halberds before letting Fang in. His voice was flat when he said he needed the sergeant. He told the story in a set of short, steady sentences. Frostshire, the descent, the night things, the carved stake. The sergeant listened like a man weighing whether to swing a hammer or a hand. "You think the world is better when everyone plays gods with the blade?" he asked. Fang answered honestly. "I think the world is worse when men who aren't from cities get punished for trying to do what's right." They searched him. The only found on him was a small hunting knife and the dust of someone who had carried a man for too long. The sergeant's jaw closed like a trap. "You're under arrest for the murder of Jix of the Seven Brothers clan," the sergeant said at last. "You'll be held until we sort out what to do with you." Fang let them lead him away. He didn't look back. The city's noise swallowed the moment he'd carried from the country. Grief, oath, and the weight of a stake. He left with a promise in his chest, he would answer for it. Whether that answer would be mercy or steel, he did not yet know.